Welcome to Daily Wisdom, where every day we seek to take a piece of God's wisdom and apply it to our everyday life. Now, today we are continuing with our Bible reading plan called The Essential Jesus. You can look for all that information on our reading plan in the description below this video here on YouTube. And you can download the plan and print it off, or you can follow along in the Bible reading app. We're jumping into our reading today, and it's found in Hebrews chapter 1, and we're going to start with verse 3. And that says, "The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word." Again, we're reminded that Jesus is deity. The Son of God is a part of God. He is a part of the person of God. Now, we talked about this in our video on the Trinity. And if you haven't seen that, there's a link right here where you can click on and watch that video and get further detail. And we're also reminded, as we talked about yesterday, that as being a part of God, one role that Jesus has now is sustaining God's creation. He is a part of our sustenance. And we talked about that in yesterday's video. And if you want more detail on that, I'd encourage you to watch that. But here's something else that I don't want us to miss regarding this point that the author of Hebrews is making. He's not only telling us that Jesus is a part of God and Jesus helps sustain God's creation, but it also helps us to understand what God thinks and feels. Have you ever wondered what God is like? Have you ever wondered what God looks like? What God thinks, what God feels? As far as what God looks like, I remember being a kid and going to Sunday school. I grew up in church. And I remember the Sunday school teacher one time asking us to draw pictures of what God may look like. And since I was raised in church and many of the other kids I attended Sunday school with were also, I remember us drawing pictures of Jesus. Some of the kids drew pictures of Jesus, knowing that he is a part of the Trinity and a part of God. I remember other kids drawing pictures of heaven because we're not really sure what God looks like. We don't get a description, but they drew a bright light bursting out of the clouds. Still, I remember other children drawing a picture of an old man sitting on a throne. That was their image of God in their mind. But what about thinking on what God feels? Have you ever wondered what God is thinking of you? How God feels about you? And what this author is reminding us is that if you want to know what God thinks, how God feels about you, look to the person of Jesus. Again, he says that the Son is the radiance and glory of God, and that he is an exact representation of God's being. God is reflected, his thoughts and feelings are reflected in the expression of his Son, Jesus. And he loves you so much that we need to go to the next verse to get a fuller description. Look at what he says in the remainder of verse 3. He says, "After he had provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven." This was another part of the role that Jesus played while he was here on earth, to live out an expression of God's love. Because his work on earth was not done until he made that personal sacrifice for us. God loves you so much. God cares for you so much. You want to know how he feels? Look to Jesus. And that representation points us to this idea that he loves us so much that he was willing to sacrifice himself, die on a cross, so that our relationship with God could be restored. That is how God feels about you. Look to Jesus. Well, that's today's daily wisdom. Hopefully you can take that with you throughout your day today. And maybe, who knows, maybe you'll end up in a spiritual discussion about God and wondering how God feels. Someone may wonder, and you can point them to Jesus as an expression of God's feelings for them. So if today's video was helpful to you, hit that thumbs up button. That'll help others to see it. And please consider subscribing to our channel. This way the YouTube app on your device will notify you every single time we upload a new video here for you to watch. And we will see you again tomorrow.